I'm continuing my preview of the Anand-Carlsen World Championship match that's going to take place in Chennai in India in November. And if you remember, I've been looking at their past games, and in the first two clips I showed you games where Anand defeated Magnus Carlsen. That was certainly the story in the early encounters. Vishwanathan Anand certainly showed his superior strength, but around about this time in early 2008, things started to turn around. Carlsen had an excellent year in 2007, and Wijk 2008 was really a breakthrough tournament for him. He came equal first with Aronian. And let's see how Carlsen and Anand got on in their individual game in that tournament. We join this very, very complicated game after 25 moves. It's an open Sicilian. Carlsen has really gone for Anand. He's advanced his G-pawn here in front of his own king, and it's driven away the knight from f6. And of course, you can see the queen is in an excellent attacking position. The knight's very well placed indeed. But Anand still has 3 pawns in front of his king and a bishop carrying out defensive duties there. And Anand is also 2 pawns up in this position. So Carlsen has to go for it, and he did that with rook c3. So this prepares to swing the rook across to the king side, and this is a deadly threat. Once the rook comes to h3, then queen h7, and that'll be mate. So Anand has to react very quickly. He played g6, perhaps the only decent move. Well, this looks very odd. Of course, he's not really intending to take this knight on f5. The point is this, that after the rook comes across to h3, that black can defend against the threat of queen takes h7 by playing h5. Now, this is a very common kind of defensive idea. The point is that if this is taken en passant, then, well, this pawn kind of blocks white's attack. So, for example, queen d8, okay, offering an exchange of queens, and after the check, the king blocks the pawn, so this blocks this avenue of attack on the king side, and so the queen has to come back, and now let's say rook c8, and black is starting a very dangerous counter-attack here, and suddenly, what's the point of these pieces on the king side? They're just blocked out. That would indeed be promising for black. So after h5, instead Carlsen played bishop f3. He just has to play very crudely in this position. He's just threatening to blast through with bishop h5 and continue the mating attack on the h-file. So Anand starts trading pieces. Now, it is possible for Carlsen to take on h5, but this would come to grief. Let's just have a quick look. The queen takes with check. Now, we can see the problem when you start advancing pawns in front of your king. This queen, which seemed to be offside at the side of the board, suddenly comes back into the center, checking the king, and now it comes to the defense of black's king here. And after this, for example, the queen comes across and is able to defend. Let's go back. I mean, this is a very typical Sicilian kind of position where black is counter-attacking, and very often black's king actually ends up in a safer position than white's king, although white was doing the attacking. So anyway, bishop takes h5 isn't working. I mean, there are other variations there, but trust me, it's not working. So Carlsen simply recaptured on d5. I mean, it's certainly the most dangerous move. So still threats to take on h5. If pawn takes knight, then white is breaking through, for example, like this. And now there's going to be attack on the f-file. You can see how in this case the black queen is shut right out of the defense, and well, white is just going to break through on the f-file. And in this case, the king is covered very well by the bishop. So Anand, well, he knows his stuff, of course. Instead, he started to pack the king's side. He played bishop g7. And the point of this is actually, he sometimes gives the king an escape square, but also sometimes gives this knight a defensive square on f8. So if this is taken, well, here, let's see, black is still 2 pawns up, and you can see his king is actually very solidly placed here. So Carlsen has to break through forcefully. There's no alternative here. If he hesitates, black is going to consolidate. So bishop takes h5, very dangerous indeed. Now I think Vishy will have seen that if he takes this bishop, then he should be able to draw this position. Again, the queen comes back, and the counterattack against White's king is good enough. This is actually going to be a draw by perpetual check, and so on. There's no really good escape there. But Anand is playing more ambitiously. He took on f5. And here, if rook takes f5, now you can see again the queen comes back. And this is actually okay for black. He can just about hold out. And this knight is very well placed next to the king, covering key squares here and here. Black is actually doing all right. So instead, well, Carlsen realised that and sacrifices the bishop. So he's throwing everything at Anand here. And now, if rook takes f5, then the king escapes. The knight does a very good defensive job around the king. But instead of that, g6 check, best move. This is so tricky. If this is taken, then white blasts through. You sack the rook, and well, you can see that this one comes in and it's going to be mate on g7. So the pawn can't be taken. The king has to come back. And here, Carlsen probably overplayed his hand. He's probably okay if he takes on f5. This looks so dangerous. Mate threatened. Again, the queen comes back. But here, and again, it's probably good enough for a draw if, for example, like this, and it's going to be a draw by perpetual check. If the king tries to escape, then the queen can dive back to h6 and block the attack. But rook takes f5 should lead to a draw. Instead, Carlsen played queen h7. It looks so tempting to chase the king out like this. Well, here's a nice variation. If knight f6, then rook takes f6 and queen f7 is mate. So the king runs away, and now I assume that Carlsen probably looked at king d8 and thought, well, this must give white certainly enough to hold a draw at least. You know, this is a dangerous pawn. The king is blocking the rooks, stopping their connection. But Anand played an excellent move here. King d6, and this knight does a fantastic job of defending the king. It also means that the rooks are still connected. That's very important for the defense. But yeah, it's the king and the knight that are really significant in this position. This is so often the case when you're defending, that the knight, if it's next to the king, it actually complements the king very well indeed, covering some really important squares and allowing the king perhaps to just dive the other side of the knight as well. And this is actually very good for black. This is what happened. Rook f7, attacking the knight, but that, well, it's no problem. Now the queen comes back, and rook d8, defending the knight, just keeps the knight in this really superb position. And in fact, suddenly white's major pieces are kind of blocked out. They've done their best, but there's no getting through this knight. It's incredible. And now it's just a case of mopping up. It's just a case of getting the rook into the attack. You can see that white's king is completely exposed. And rook g8, an excellent move. Well, there's really nothing for white to do here. You can actually take this rook, but Anand played very carefully, very prudently, maintaining the knight in its superb defensive square, and here he just ensures that his rook is going to enter the game, and that'll be the end. In fact, Carlsen resigned here. Let's just see what might happen. The rook comes in. You can just trade pieces actually, and black is a whole knight up, and we just need to get the rook into the attack. So we do that by defending the knight here, and that will free up the rook. And for example, rook f8 connecting with the queen, and suddenly the counter-attack will be just deadly, and you can see king completely exposed and white's queen and rook at the wrong end of the board. So although Carlsen won the tournament in Wijk, equal with Aronian with 8 out of 13, Anand was second with 7.5, but in their individual game, Anand still had the better of Carlsen. I'll be giving more of their past games in later clips, so do join me for that. And check out the playlist if you haven't seen these preview clips before, then do look at the playlist and you'll see those previous games there as well. Thanks.